Hello, everyone. I'm gonna read the Rat Burger chapter 6 to chapter 10. And there's only music in this time. So please don't. Yeah. So far we've done chapter 5. So far we've done this thing here. Chapter 6. A rat tat. When do you think of the word rat? What is the next thing to come into your head? Rat vermin, rat sewer, rat disease, rat bite, rat plague, rat catcher, rat attack. Rats are the most unloved little things on the planet. Kids loved kittens, puppies, bunnies, hamsters, gerbils, guinea pigs, baby elephants, koala bears, piglets, penguins, butterflies, the unloved slugs, spiders, stinging nettles, wasps, worms, jellyfish, farts, pears, morgan, and rats. However, what if I told you that what Zoe found in her room that night was a baby rat? Yes, it was the cutest, sweetest little baby rat you can imagine. And it was crouching in the corner of her room, nibbling on one of her dirty, hole-ridden socks. With a tiny pink twitching nose, furry ears, and huge, deep, hopeful eyes, this was a rat that could win first prize in the Vermin Beauty pageant. This explains the mysterious droppings that Zoe had recently found in her room. It must have been this little mite. But it certainly wasn't me. Zoe had always thought she would be terrified if she ever saw a rat. Her stepmother even kept rat poison in the kitchen, as there was always talk of an infection in the crumbling block of flats. However, this rat didn't seem very terrifying. In fact, if anything, the rat appeared to be terrified of Zoe. The floorboard creaked as she approached, in the skirt of the wall, and hid under her bed. Don't be scared, little ones, whispered Zoe. Slowly put her hand under the bed, trying to stroke the rat. It shivered in fear at first, its fur standing up on end. Shush, shush, said Zoe comfortingly. Little by little, the rat made its way through the garden of dust and dirt under Zoe's creaky little bed and approached her hands. It sniffed her fingers before licking one, then another. Shella was too idle to cook, and Zoe was so starving she had sewn a bag of her stepmother's shredded prawn cocktail chips for her dinner. The rat must have been able to smell them on her fingers, and desperate Zoe gave grave misgivings about the snack, which bore no relations to prawns or indeed cocktails. The rat didn't seem to mind. Zoe let out a little giggle. The nibbling tickled her. She lifted her hand to stroke the rat, and it ducked underneath and raced to the far corner of the room. Shush, shush, come on! I only want you to give you a stroke, implored Zoe. The rat peered at her with uncertainty. Before attentively, paw by paw, making its way over to her hand, she brushed its fur with her little finger as lightly as she could. The fur was a lot softer than she imagined, not as soft as ginger nuts. Nothing was. It was surprisingly soft, nonetheless. Nothingness, I think. One by one, Zoe's fingers lowered, and soon she was stroking the top of the rat's head. Zoe let her fingers trickle down its neck and back. The rat arched its back to meet her hand. Most likely it had never been shown such tenderness before. Certainly not by a human. Not only was there enough rat poison in the world to kill every rat 10 times over, but when people saw a rat, they would generally either scream or reach for the broom to whack it with. Looking at this little tiddler, though, it was hard for Zoe to understand why anyone would want to harm him. Suddenly, the rat's little ears shot up, and Zoe quickly turned her head. Her parents' bedroom door was opening, and she could hear her stepmother thundering along the hallways, puffing with each step. Hurriedly, Zoe snatched the rat, cupped it in her hands, and jumped back into bed. Stella would go crazy if she knew her stepdaughter was in bed cuddling a rodent. Zoe took the velvet between her teeth and hid under the covers. She waited and listened. The bathroom door creaked open and closed, and Zoe could hear the muffled sound of her stepmother tumbling down on the cracked toilet seat. Zoe sighed and opened her hands. The baby rat was safe for now. She let the little rodent scamper over her hands and onto her torn pajama top. Kiss, 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 kiss. She made a little kissing noise just like the one she used to do with Ginger Nut. And just like the hamster used to do, the rat approached her face. She planted a little kiss on its nose. She pushed a dent in the pillow next to her head and gently laid the rat down into it. It fitted perfectly, and soon as she could hear it snoring very quietly next to her. If you ever heard a rat snoring, this is what it sounds like. How on earth am I going to keep you a secret? Zoe whispered. Chapter 7, Animal Smuggling. I'm going to read on to chapter 10 in this episode. So it's just enough time for our 1 minute song playlist. It isn't easy to smuggle a rat into school. The hardest animal to sneak into school is, of course, the blue whale, just too big and wet. Hippopotamus are also hard to sleep unnoticed, as are giraffes, too fat and tall, respectively. Lions are inadvisable. All that warrants give them away. Sea bark too much, as do walruses. Some smell really bad, even worse than some teachers. Kangaroos can't just don't stop hopping. Bobies sound too rude. Elephants tend to break the chairs, and ostriches will get you to school quickly, but it's too big to hide in your school bag. Polar bears blend into Arctic wastes very well, but they're spotted instantly in their school dinner queue. Smuggling a shark into school will lead instant inclusion, especially if you have swimming lessons that day. They have a tendency to eat the children. Orangutans are also a no-no. They can be very disruptive in class. Gorillas are even worse, especially in math. Gorillas are not good with numbers and hated doing sums, although they are surprisingly good at French. A herd of wildebeest is almost impossible to take to school without the teacher noticing. It's, on the other hand, a relatively easy. Some people smuggle thousands of eggs into school every day. A rat is a difficult animal to smuggle into school, somewhere between a lure and a net on the hard to smuggle into school ski. The problem was that it was impossible for Zoe to leave the little thing at home. Gingernut's old brother Tate was long gone, as stepmother would have taken it to the pawnbrokers. The ghastly woman had swapped it for a few coins, which she had probably spent it on a dumper box of prawn cocktail grips. 36 bags that she had all demolished before breakfast. So, if Zoe had just left the rat running around the flat, she knew that Cheryl would have poisoned it or stamped on it or both. Her stepmother made no secret of hating all rodents, and even if Zoe had hidden the rat in the bedroom drawer or in a box under her bed, there was a very good chance Stella would have found it. Zoe knew that her stepmother always rummaged through her possessions the moment she left for school. Zoe was looking for things she could sell or swap or for a bag or two, or some more prawn cocktail chips. One day all of Zoe's toys had gone. Another day it was her beloved books. It was too risky to leave the rat alone in the flat with that woman. Zoe considered putting the rat in her school bag because she was so poor she had to take her books to school with a beaten up plastic carrier bag. It held together with piece of sticky tape. It was too much risky that the little rodent might nibble its way out, so Zoe hid it in the breast pocket for two sizes too large. Of course, she could feel it constantly wiggling around, but at least she knew it was safe. As Zoe came out of the stairwell of the tower block, it was concreted camera area. She heard a sound above her. Zoe, she looked up. Big mistake. A big flopper of flopped square onto her face. Zoe saw Tina Trot standing on the rails several floors up. Ha 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 ha! Tina shouted down. Zoe refused to cry. She just wrapped her face with her sleeve and turned away. Tina's laughter still echoed in behind her. She probably would have cried, but then she felt the little rat move in her pocket, and she instantly felt better. Now I've got a little pet again, she thought. It might just be a rat, but it's only the beginning. Perhaps Raj was right. Her dream of training an animal to entertain the nation wasn't dead after all. The rats persistently remained a comfort when Zoe arrived at school. This was Zoe's first year at first year at big school, and she hadn't made a single friend there yet. Most of the kids were poor, but Zoe was the poorest. It was embarrassing for her to have to go to school in unwashed clothes in from charity shops. Clothes which were either far too big or far too small for her, and most of which were gaping holes in them. The rubber sole had all but fallen off her shoes. It flapped against the ground every time she took a step. Flip, flap, flip, flap, flip, flap went her shoes every time she walked. anywhere. Flippity flap, flippity flap, flippity flap as she ran. At an assembly, after an announcement about the end of term talent show, the pale headmaster, Mr. Graves, stepped up to speak. He stood in the center of the stage, unblinkingly staring at the hundreds of pupils gathering in the school hall. Other children were a bit scared of him, with his staring eyes and pale skin. Wild rumors abound among the younger pupils that he was secretly a vampire. Mr. Gray proceeded to give a turn warning of those errant pupils who, against the rules, had been smuggling their mobile phones into school. This was just a botany, though Zoe was too far skinned to even dream of owning one. Oh my goodness. This is how the headmaster looks like. Great, thought Zoe. Even when we're being told off, I'll get left out. Needless to say, I'm not just talking about phones, boomed Mr. Gray, as if reading Zoe's mind. His voice would carry across a crowded playground at break time and make every pupil fall silent in a heartbeat. Anything that beeps or vibrates is strictly forbidden. Do you hear me? He boomed again. Forbidden, that's all. That's all. That is all. Dismissed. A bell rang and the kids plodded off to their lessons, sitting on the uncomfortable little gray plastic chair on her own lonely row at the back of the assembly hall. Zoe wondered if a rat came under Mrs. Graves' description. It certainly vibrates sometimes it beeps, or at least squeaks. Don't make a sound today, little rat, she said. The rat squeaked. Oh no! Chapter 8 Bread Sandwich. So as not to be jostled at the door, Zoe waited a few minutes before unbeknownst to her first lesson. Amazingly, maths, which she always found cataclysmically boring, passed without incident. As did geography, where she wondered if her newfound knowledge of exposed lakes might come in useful in adult life. During the lessons, Zoe stole a patient glance at the laser inside the pockets and saw that the little rat was sleeping. It must really enjoy a nice lion. In break time, Zoe locked herself in a curious in the girls' toilets and fed the rats some bread as she was meant to be saving for her lunch. She made her own packed lunch whenever there was scraps of food still in the house. However, this morning there was absolutely nothing in the fridge other than a few cans of very strong lager, so she made herself a bread sandwich out of stale slices out of side. The recipe was simple. Bread sandwich. All you need is 3 slices of bread. Instructions: take 1 slice of bread and put it between the 2 slices of bread. The end. Unsurprisingly, the rat liked bread. The rats like most food we like. Zoe sat on the toilet seat and the rat perched on her left hand as she fed it on her right. It gobbled up every last mouthful. There you go, little. At the moment, Zoe realized she had yet to name her tiny friend, unless she would give it a name suitable for a boy or girl, like Pat or Liz or Viv. She would have to find out if it's indeed or a boy. So Zoe carefully picked up the rat to have a closer look. Just as she was trying to undertake a more thorough investigation, a thin arch of yellow liquid spray from just underneath the restaurant narrowly missed Zoe, decorating the wall. The girl now had a definite answer. she had convinced that the wee had came from a tiny little sprout. It was impossible to look again, with the rat now wiggling in her hands. But she was sure it was a boy. Zoe looked up in inspiration, and the toilet door. Some other girls had scratched obscene sentences with a compass. Destiny is a complete. The red thing. I think Kenya always very rude even if she is. Destiny would have been a stupid name for a rat, especially a boy rat, thought the little girl. Continued searching the names on the door for inspiration. Vulture, Vulture, no, Darius, no, Busta, no, Tupac, no, Jammer, oh no, Snoop, no, Meredith, no, Kel, no, Boyens, no, Bay Ones, no, Caron, no, Chanty, no. Despite being crowded with words and some rude drawings, the toilet wasn't providing as much inspiration as Zoe had hoped. She sat up from the toilet seat and turned around to flush, but not as alert of the suspicious of the girl she could hear to the next cubicle. At the moment, she spied a push drawing amongst all the ingrained stains in the puddle. Armitage Shacks. She read aloud. It was the only name of the toilet manufacturer. But the little rat ear twitched when she said it, as if in recognition. Armitage Shacks, she explained with a stupidly upper-class sounding name for this little special fellow. Suddenly there was a loud thud on the toilet door. Boom, boom, boom. That was Tina Trotz. Who have you got in there, little squirt? Came a gruntle voice from the outside. No, thought so. It's Tina Trotz. The spit from today's flood had still not entirely come off Zoe's little freckled face. Tina was only 14, but built like a trucker. She had big hands that could punch, big feet that could kick, a big head that could butt, and a big butt that could even squash. Even the teachers were scared of her. Inside the cubicle, Zoe was quacking with fear. There's no one here. What? Said Zoe. Why did I say that? She instantly thought. Their mere act of saying that there was no one in there means there was a definite, without doubt, 100% someone in there. Zoe was in terrible danger, but only if she opened the door. For now, she was safe inside the. Get out of the park right now before I smash the door! Thundered Tina. Oh dear. Chapter 9. One shoe. Zoe quickly put Amherst back in her blazer pocket. I'm just having a wee, said Zoe. Then she made a rather pitiful sound that she hoped sounded like water gushing into the bowl by pursing her lips and blowing. It ended up sounding more like snakes and piss. Of course, Zoe's hope that this would convince Tina Charles that she was using the toilet for legitimate purposes only, and not for feeding a bread sandwich to a long-tailed rodent. Zoe then took a deep breath and opened the toilet door. Tina stared down at Zoe, two of her usual goods flanking her. Hello, Tina, said Zoe in his voice quite a few octaves higher than her usual one. Intending to play innocent, she felt like she was giving the appearance of someone who was in fact exceedingly guilty. Oh, it's you. Who were you talking to, Braceface? Demanded Tina, leaning into the cubicle. Now myself, said Zoe. I often talk to myself whenever I'm passing water. Passing what? Having a wee. So if you with me, I have to be off to my history class. With that, the junior girl tried to ease past Tina and her foot. So it's not so fast, said Tina. Me and my gang own these bugs. We sell stone gear from in here. So unless you want to buy a trainer, we nip suit off. Don't you mean a pair of trainers? No, I mean a trainer. They'll only put one L on the shelf, so it's much easier to steal one than two. Mills, so not sure what anyone with 2 feet would want just the one shoe. Listening, Ginge, computer Billy, we don't want you in our box. You hear putting off all customers by talking yourself like some nutter. Understood, murdered Joe. Very sorry, Tina. Now give us your money. I don't have any, said Zoe. She wasn't lying. Her dad has been working benefits for years, so she never received pocket money. When she walked to school, she would scrawl the pavements for coins. One particularly lucky day, she had found a 5-pound note in the gutter. It was wet, it was dirty, but it was hers. Skipping home with delight, she stopped at Roch, used it, and brought a whole box of chocolates to share with her family. However, before Zoe's dad had gone home, her stepmother had scoffed everyone with dreaded cherry liqueurs before gobbling down the box too. No money, likely story, splattered Tina. Splattering is a bit of spluttering, but the person talked to ends covered this in spit. What do you mean? Said Joe. We both live the same estate. You know I don't have any cash. Tina scoffed. I bet you get pocket money. Always walking around like you own the place. Girls grab her. Like clockwork, the bully circled around our little heroine. The two goons seized her arms tightly. Ah! Screamed Zoe in pain. Their fingers were digging into her arms as Tina's large, dirty hands started reaching in Zoe's pockets. Zoe's heart started pounding. Amos the rat was lying asleep in the breast pocket of her blazer. Tina's chubby fingers were pounding and poking everywhere. Within seconds, they would come into contact with the small rodent, and Zoe's life at school would change forever. Bringing a rat into school was not something you would ever live down. Once a boy 4 feet above had leaned out of the couch window on a field trip to the Railway Museum, and ever since he had he called Harry Bum to everyone in the school, even the teachers. Time slowed down and then speed up as Tina's search for money led inevitably to Zoe's breast pocket. Her fingers thrust into and poked poor little Amos on its nose. What's this? Said the little ginger has got something living in here. Now, Amos must have been not taken kindly to be branded by a big dirty finger on his nose because he bit on it. Ah! Screamed Tina. Her hand shot out of Zoe's pocket, but Amos was still attached, clinging on with his little sharp teeth dangling from her finger. Look! Screamed the bully. Squealed the bully. It's a rat. Chapter 10 The Midget. It's only a baby rat, reasoned Zoe, trying to calm Tina down. She was afraid she might smack Emerge against something and hurt him. Tina started shaking her hand violently as she ran around the girls' toilet in utter panic. However, the baby rat would not let go. The goons stood as still as statues, searching by searching the tiny brains for appropriate reasons to rat attached to finger. Unsurprisingly, nothing seemed to come to mind. Hold still, said Zoe, Tina kept running around. I said, "Hold still," surprisingly shocked by this authoritative tone from the small ginger girl. Tina stopped moving carefully, as if dealing with an angry bear. Zoe took Tina's hand in hers. "Come on, Amber." Carefully, she pressed the rat's sharp teeth off the large girl's finger. "There you go," said Zoe in the manner of the dentist who had just given a child of a many painful feeling. "Come on now, Tutu was bad. Wasn't too bad. The little bit me," protested Tina, revealing herself as the likely author as an insulting message on the toilet door. The the bully exclaimed, her finger. Two tiny drops of blood oozed out of the tip. "Tina, there are nothing more than tin pricks," replied Zoe. The grooms craned their long necks together close enough. They nodded their heads in agreement with Zoe. Their infant Tina had made her face went fur red like a volcano, like a volcano about to explode. "I'm going about to die," I thought so. She is actually gonna kill me. Oh, then the bell rang for the end of break. "Well, if you excuse us," said so more calmly than she felt. "Emma and I don't want to be late for her history class." "Why is it called that?" "It's a long story," said so, who wasn't about to tell them he was named after a toilet. "Another time, perhaps. Goodbye." The three boys were too shocked to stop her, cupping her little friend in her hand. She strolled out of the toilet, just clear of the door. She realized she wasn't actually breathing. She and that she should probably start again. Then she gave Emma a little kiss on the head. "You're my guardian angel," she whispered before placing him carefully back in the breast pocket. Zoe suddenly realized Tina and Gang might be following her, so without looking back, she quickened her pace. The straw became a stride, and the stride became a sprint. Before she knew it, she was sitting breathless in her first history class, which was presided over by Mr. As the history teacher was an extremely short lady, she was as inevitably in giving a name Miss Midget or simply Midget. Wait, wasn't it Organ from the usual books now? I think it's changing this PDF I got. Teacher always wore high-heeled leather boots with heels that made her look even shorter than she actually was. However, the Mrs. Midge was an orch, which is from the real book, lacked in the height. She was four up the fiercely. Her teeth would have been at the place in her mouth of a crocodile. She bared these teeth whenever protest pleased her, which as was often. Kids didn't have to do much in for her, even as an involuntary sniffle or cough could insult the monstrous now from the terrifying but tiny teacher. So says Mrs. Midge, Leprechaun, Elf, Fairy, Sprite, Pixie. "You're late," growled Mrs. Midge. "Sorry, Mrs. Midge," without thinking. "Oh no." Well, there was a few chuckles from her class, but mainly Gab's. So was so used to calling the history teacher Mrs. Midget behind her back that she had to done to her face by mistake. "What did you say?" demanded Mrs. Midge. "I'm sorry. I said I'm sorry, Miss Midge," exploded Zoe with a spread that had sprung on her back from the girls' toilets, now teeming out of her pores. Zoe looked like she had been caught by a vicious gangster, and she was squirming too, probably because the witch talker had become over with sudden damp with warm sweat. "Must be like a swan in there." Separately, Zoe reached her hand to her breast and patted gently her to calm her little friend. Just one more piece of the miscon from here, said Mrs. Midge, and you'll not just be out of this classroom, you'll be out of the school. Zoe gulped. She had only studied the big school, and she wasn't used to getting in trouble. She had never done anything wrong at her little school, but even the thought of doing something wrong frightened her. Now back to lesson. Today you are going to learn about the Black Death, announced Mrs. Midge. And she crawled the words as high as she could reach on the board, which actually was the bottom. Writing on the board was a real problem for Mrs. Midge. In fact, sometimes she would order a child to get down on the classroom floor on their hands and knees. Oh, the miniature teacher would then climb on top of them so she could reach really high enough to wipe the board clean of the previous teacher's scribbling. For very high scribblings from very tall teachers, you would simply stack more children. The Black Death was not on the school history syllabus, but Mrs. Midge taught it anyway. The legend had it that one year all of her class failed their exam because instead of teaching them about Queen Victoria, she spent the whole year rehearsing the gruesome details of medieval torture, of being hanged, drawn, and quartered. Mrs. Mitchell refused to teach anything the most grisly passage of history, beheads, flogging, burning at the stake. The teacher would grin and bare her crocodile teeth at the mention of anything cruel and brutal and bar, barbaric. In fact, this term it had been going on non-stop about Black Death. Her it was her absolute obsession, unsurprisingly, really, as this was one of her darkest periods in the human history. When it was 14th century, 100 million people died from the terrifying infectious disease. Victims would have been covered in great boils, vomit, blood, and die. And that's cause they had learned in a previous lesson was nothing more than a flea bite. Boils the size of apples. Imagine that. Vomiting until all was left to stick up was your own blood. They couldn't dip the grapes fast enough. Wonderful stuff. The children stared at Mrs. Midge, open-mouthed with terror. At that moment, the headmaster, Mr. Gripp, entered the classroom without knocking. His clothes flapped behind him like a cape. The naughty kids at the back of the class, who had been texting throughout the lesson, quickly hid their mother phones under the desk. Ah, Mr. Gripp, what do I owe the pleasure? Said Mrs. Midge. Is it about the talent show? Zoe had long since suspected that Mrs. Mitch had a soft spot for the headmaster. Only that morning, Zoe had passed the poster in the corridor was for the end of term talent show that Mrs. Mitch was putting on. The poster was, of course, placed very low down on the wall, really at the knee height of most pupils. It was seemed very out of character for Mrs. Mitch to organize something so fun, and Zoe wondered if she had done it to impress the headmaster. It was well known that Mr. Gripp, despite his scary vampire appearance, was a great lover of school plays, and it's like, "Good morning, Mrs. Midget." I mean, Mrs. Mid. Even Mr. Gripp couldn't stop himself. The history teacher's smile dropped. I'm afraid it isn't about the talent show, so I'm grateful to you for putting it on. Though Mrs. Midget being the no, boomed Mr. Gray, something more serious, I'm afraid. Mrs. Midge's smile dropped once more. You see, the headmaster said to Hampster, the caretaker has found a dropping in the girls' toilets. So, thank you for watching this video. I'll tell you the names of the song that has been played here in the description. Thank you for watching.